There are silences that scream louder than 1,000 words. And when a man stops chasing her, she feels it. She doesn't admit it, she doesn't say it, she doesn't post about it, but she feels it. Because that absence, that unexpected pause, throws her off balance. It breaks the script. And what once felt like a safe game suddenly turns into an uncertainty that eats her up inside. You're not going to find sweet quotes or tips to win her back here. What you'll find is what really happens inside a woman's mind when you disappear with dignity. What sparks her desire, what forces her to remember you, and what she'll never be able to replace. Today I'm going to show you the 7 rawest reactions a woman experiences when you're no longer at her feet. And I promise you, the last one will change the way you see yourself as a man forever. I'm Celia. And if you've ever begged for a woman who later ignored you, this video isn't just about understanding her. It's about reclaiming yourself. Because when a man wakes up, feminine desire no longer controls him. It chases him. Have you ever wondered what goes through a woman's mind the first time you don't reply to her message? Not because you're angry, not because you want to manipulate her, but because you're truly gone, because you chose yourself. That's when everything begins. You're at the first point of this video, and what I'm about to reveal has a clear name, the void that forces her to think about you. She didn't expect that. She was used to you being her mirror, her constant source of attention, validation, presence. She reached out just enough to make sure you were still there, and you, like an emotional clock, responded with the precision of a man who didn't know he was worth more than what he was giving. But one day, something changed. The message went unanswered. The call wasn't returned. The sweet words you used to send vanished. And there was no drama, no complaints, just silence. A silence that isn't indifference. It's sovereignty. And to the female mind, that hurts more than any insult. Because a woman can ignore a needy man, she can trample a submissive one, but she can't forget the one who left without asking for anything, without begging for love, without crying to stay. That's the one who gets stuck in her memory, the one who forces her to look in the mirror and ask herself, what happened? And that's where the crack begins. Because her ego, the one you fed for months, now has nothing to feed on. No more late-night texts, no more anxious questions, no more eyes following her like emotional satellites. There's only her, and the echo of her own abandonment. It's like you turned off a light she didn't know she needed until it stopped shining. What she feels isn't love. It's emptiness. It's confusion. It's that uncomfortable feeling of not understanding why you're no longer hers, when she never fully let you go. And that's where real desire begins. Not the physical kind, the mental kind, the emotional kind, the desire to once again feel chosen by the man who now walks without looking back. Because when you stop chasing her, you don't just become more valuable, you become unreachable. And for a woman who thrives on male attention, that's more painful than any breakup. It's silent proof that you lost interest, right when she thought she still had you wrapped around her finger. Don't get it twisted. She doesn't miss you. She misses her reflection in your absence. She misses the image of herself she built through your eyes, and that now no longer exists. That void, even if she never says it, follows her in every silence, in every attempt to distract herself with someone else. In every night she stares at her phone, waiting for something that no longer comes. And you, if you understand this point, if you live it with clarity, you'll never again chase someone who pulls away without reason. Because you'll know real power isn't in pursuing, it's in walking away with presence, and becoming that silence that can't be replaced, or ignored, or forgotten. When a woman starts to feel the emptiness of your absence, the first thing she tries to do is fill that space with ego. But when ego is no longer enough, when the silence lingers and you don't come back, something much deeper begins to surface. Insecurity, and not just any insecurity, but the return of her feminine insecurity. We've reached the second key point of this video, and this is where the real internal shift begins, one you trigger without even touching her. I've seen it countless times in sessions. Women walk in with firm voices and proud eyes, swearing they don't need the man who walked away. But within minutes, once the defenses drop, the trembling shows up, the fear, the why didn't he come back? What did he see in me that turned him off? Did he find someone better? Because when a man pulls away without making a scene, without begging for an explanation, he triggers one of the most primal wounds in the feminine psyche, the fear of not being enough, and Celia has heard that wound more times than she can count. Deep psychology explains it clearly. Female desire isn't born solely from pleasure or love, it's also born from control, from feeling admired, desired, claimed. And when that control breaks, when you no longer respond as expected, it stirs up a storm inside her she can't control. The problem isn't that you disappeared. The problem is that in your absence, she no longer knows who she is, because she stopped seeing herself through you. And what she finds when she looks at herself alone doesn't always feel good. From the lens of Stoic wisdom, this is called detachment. You separate emotionally, not out of resentment, out of clarity, because you've realized your worth doesn't depend on being chosen. And that posture, that calm confidence that doesn't need to persuade, breaks through any mask she's built, because you're no longer competing for her validation. You're standing in your autonomy, your center, your dignity, and for a woman who bases her sense of self on male attention, that's devastating. This return of her insecurity doesn't show up through tears or confessions. It shows up in subtle shifts. She dresses up more, posts indirect messages, texts you ambiguously, not because she wants to come back, but because she needs to confirm she can still trigger your desire, that she can still pull your attention. But if you hold your silence, if you stay grounded without bitterness or need, what she feels isn't rejection. It's admiration mixed with fear, because for the first time, you're out of her control. And that, my dear, is the beginning of your true power, not the power to punish her, not to manipulate her in return, but to prove, through action, that your world doesn't revolve around a woman who once chose to let you go, that you can live, grow, and shine without becoming an emotional beggar. And believe me, when she sees that clearly, she starts to wonder whether she was the one who really left you, or if you were the one who, in silence, chose not to return. You already understand that your silence creates a void for her. You've seen how that void awakens her oldest insecurity. But now is where the real game begins. We've reached the third point of this video, and this is where everything starts to shift. The fantasy of you coming back on your knees. Because even if she doesn't say it, even if she acts cold or indifferent in her mind, she's already imagining the moment you return. Maybe with a long message, a nostalgic phrase, an excuse to talk again. She's waiting for that comeback. She needs it, because if you don't return, her entire narrative falls apart. Let me make it clear. When you walk away with conviction, she doesn't think you forgot about her. She thinks you're testing her. She believes you're using some strategy to punish her, to see how she reacts, only to come back stronger. Her mind doesn't go to abandonment, it goes to the script. And in that script, you come back. You show up. You beg. You ask for another chance. Because that's the story that keeps her comfortable, that allows her to stay in control, to be the one who decides, the one who rejects or accepts. But as the days go by and you don't return, the script falls apart, and with it, her emotional control. And this is where you must apply the most powerful strategy of all, silence with purpose, not reactive silence, not some childish pause to manipulate, a steady, calm, congruent silence. One where you don't just stop chasing her, but focus on yourself, on your body, your work, your projects, your friends. Because true power isn't in disappearing, it's in building yourself while you're gone, in turning that distance into growth, in showing, without saying a word, that your life didn't dim without her, it lit up on a whole new level. This strategy works because it activates one of the most intense dynamics in the female psyche, the fear of not having been enough to stop you, and even more, the fear of seeing you flourish without her. Think of it like a plant she stopped watering. She thought it would wither. But when she sees that the plant not only survives, but thrives in another garden, with more light, more air, she starts to realize the problem wasn't you, it was her. And that realization, even if she never admits it, leaves a mark. I've seen it happen with men who stopped chasing, who stopped handing out attention to a woman who no longer chose them, and within weeks, they started getting vague texts, random photos, calls for no reason. Not because she truly missed them, but because her ego needed proof she still had access to them. But when those men didn't respond, when they chose to keep walking without looking back, that woman didn't just want them more. She started to respect them, because she realized she wasn't dealing with an emotionally manipulable man, but with one who had finally chosen himself. Before we go on, hit that subscribe button and like this video if it's hitting you deep. Comment what country you're watching from and type just 3 words, "I stopped chasing," because there are still 4 truths you need to hear, and the last one might be the turning point that changes forever how you relate to any woman. When she starts fantasizing about your return and you don't show up, something inside her emotional structure begins to shake. But right there, just when you're about to solidify your power, is when many men make a silent and devastating mistake. Because it's not enough to walk away, you also have to hold your ground. And that brings us to the 4th point of this video, the mirror that triggers her crisis. This point goes deeper than you think because it's not really about her. It's about you, about your unconscious need to keep validating yourself through her gaze. Many men, after taking some distance, fall into the trap of checking back in, sending a short message, liking a post, letting her know they're still thinking about her. And they justify it with rational excuses. I just want to know how she's doing. I want closure. I don't want to seem like the bad guy. But the truth is something else. What they're really seeking, without admitting it, is to feel seen again, desired, remembered. That's the mirror, and that mirror is lethal. Because if you look into it again, if you go back to depending on her reflection to define your worth, you lose everything you had gained. Because that woman, who was already slipping into her own chaos, now finds peace. She settles down, because you went back to the script. You're no longer the man who disappeared without a word. You're the one who still needs her, the one who, eventually, always comes back. And in that moment, her crisis fades, because her image in your eyes remains untouched. The mistake is allowing your growth to hinge on being remembered, on being admired. And that, even if you don't say it out loud, is a disguised form of emotional submission, because you're handing your power over to her validation. You're saying without words, I need to know I'm still special to you. But the man who truly rebuilds himself doesn't need to confirm his value. He holds it, embodies it, lives it, even when no one's watching. When you fall into that trap, you don't just lose her respect, you lose something deeper, your self-respect. Because deep down, you know you didn't act from your center. You knocked on a door you had already chosen to close. And that inner contradiction, that lack of coherence, weighs heavier than any rejection. That's why, when she falls into crisis because she no longer sees herself in you, let her stay there. Don't rescue her, don't look back, don't reach out. Because if you can hold steady in that moment, if you can resist the urge to reappear, she's not just going to wonder what she lost. She's going to confront her own emptiness. And there, in that space where she can no longer project herself onto you, her real conflict begins. One you didn't create, but your absence revealed. This isn't about punishing her, it's about protecting yourself, about not going back to that place where your worth depends on her eyes. Because you're not here to be her mirror, you're here to be your own reflection. And if you get that, you'll never again need her to come looking for you to feel like you matter. You'll be the man who doesn't need to be chosen to know his worth. And that, my friend, is the beginning of a freedom no woman can ever give you or take away. You've seen what happens when you don't come back. You've felt the internal shaking when you resist the urge to reach out. But there's a critical moment that breaks that tension, one most men fail to recognize. It's when she, feeling like she's losing you, does the most predictable thing. She tries to replace you, or at least she pretends to. We've reached the 5th point of this video, and what's coming is raw, the replacement game that doesn't work. Yes, she reaches out to someone else, or she finally replies to the guy who's been waiting on the sidelines. And if you're not grounded, if you're still emotionally tied to the hope that she'll come back, you'll see that move as a defeat, as if she won, as if you no longer have a place in her world. And that's where many men break, because they still believe being replaced means they weren't good enough. They still compare themselves. They still hand her the power to define their worth. But what you're not seeing is that the replacement doesn't come from desire. It comes from urgency, from the need to fill a space that you left burning. Because you didn't walk away with anger, you left with dignity. And that, she doesn't know how to process. So instead of looking inward, instead of facing herself, she chooses the easy way out. Another body, another conversation, another distraction. But there's no chemistry, no story, no soul, just reaction. Because you left without noise. And now she needs to create noise with someone else. And if you don't get this, you fall into the most destructive cycle there is. Comparison. You start spying on her, checking her social media, looking for signs of replacement, and every photo, every post, every hint pulls you deeper into the void, because you're still living in her story, not your own. You're still giving her the power to hurt you, as if your worth depends on being her choice. But let me be brutally clear. The one who replaces you doesn't surpass you. He just imitates you. He's only trying to fill a space you once filled with presence, and that sooner or later becomes obvious. The way out isn't in competing. It's in understanding, in seeing that replacement attempt for what it really is. Proof that your absence hit hard, that you mattered, not because she loves you, but because she can't forget you. But if you go back, if you cave, if you confront her from your ego, you lose, because you hand the power right back, because you show her it still hurts, and that flips the script. She feels validated, and you go back to being the one who's waiting. To break that pattern, you need to adopt a mindset few men ever master: conscious detachment, not coldness, not fake indifference, real detachment. Knowing that whatever she does is no longer your concern, that you're on a different path, building something new, something higher. Because when a woman tries to replace you and you don't react, she starts to wonder if she really lost you, or if you simply moved to a place she can no longer reach. And that's where you reclaim your power, not by returning, not by seeking revenge, but by staying on your path, untouched by what she does with her emptiness. Because you're no longer here to be compared. You're here to build a life so solid, so desirable, so entirely yours, that not even 100 replacements can erase your impact. Because the man who doesn't react becomes the one no woman can forget. When a woman tries to replace you and you don't react, she starts to lose something she didn't expect, her ability to control you emotionally. But right there, at the very moment you could cement your strength, many men make the worst mistake. Because silence isn't always held from power. Sometimes it's held from hope. From the secret longing that she'll come back. And that hope becomes a punishment. This brings us to the 6th point of this video: the invisible punishment of your indifference. Picture it. You pulled away. You didn't reach out. You said nothing. She tried to replace you. It didn't work. But inside, you're still keeping track. You're still checking your phone. You're still hoping she'll text. And even if you don't admit it, every day that passes without a sign wears you down. Not because of what she does, but because of what you won't let go. Because you're not in silence, you're in pause. And that's not freedom. It's a prison with no bars, built from repressed desire and delayed fantasy. True indifference doesn't hurt, it frees. But what many men are practicing isn't indifference, it's suppression. They're holding back the urge to talk, to show up, to confirm they still matter. And in doing so, they become prisoners of their own pride. They act strong, but inside, they're still waiting. And that waiting eats them alive. It disconnects them, drains the energy they should be using to focus on themselves. Visualize this: a man staring at his phone every night, pretending he no longer cares. But he's not going out. He's not training. He's not building. He's just waiting, sighing, distracted, but still stuck in the memory of what once was. And meanwhile, his world stands still. His power fades. His desire withers. Because the punishment is no longer what she did to him. It's what he keeps doing to himself. If you stay trapped in that passive waiting, you're giving up the only real power you have, your direction. Because life doesn't stop for a bond that no longer burns. Life pushes you to move, to create, to rise again. And if you don't, if you just keep waiting for a sign, a message, an apology, you're erasing yourself. You're becoming irrelevant in your own story. But there is a way out. One way: move. Don't pretend you don't care. Make it true. Because when a woman senses that your silence is no longer a tactic, but a new state of being, she starts to feel something she can't control, that you're really gone, not emotionally, not symbolically, but for real. And that, more than any words, more than any confrontation, breaks her. Because she knows there's nothing more dangerous than a man who no longer expects anything. Because that man can no longer be manipulated. And you can be that man, but not if you're still caught in the quiet cycle of emotional dependence, not if your indifference is just a mask. The real punishment isn't that she doesn't come back, it's that you never recover. Don't let that happen, because if you do, it's not her who loses you, it's you who loses yourself. And there's no betrayal deeper than that. If you've made it this far, you already understand that silence isn't a tactic. It's a declaration. That indifference isn't punishment, it's freedom. But the most important part is still ahead. Because you can stop chasing her, you can stay centered, you can resist the urge to go back. But if you don't transform your essence, she, or any woman, will end up holding the power again. We've reached the 7th point of this video, and there's no turning back. The rebirth of your masculine power. This isn't just another point, it's the breaking point. The line that separates the man who begs from the one who rises, because what you needed wasn't for her to miss you. It was for you to respect yourself again, to desire yourself again, to see yourself as the man you were before love became need, and desire turned into dependence. And that doesn't come from nice quotes or self-help books. It comes from decision, from direction, from real strength. The kind that doesn't shout, doesn't belittle, doesn't ask for permission. The kind that enters a room and is felt without having to prove a thing. Because true masculine power isn't about dominating a woman. It's about not being dominated by her game. It's being able to have her without needing her, to love her without losing yourself. It's being able to say, yes, you matter to me, but I matter more. And when she feels that, truly feels it, without words, without manipulation, something deep in her unconscious awakens. Because her instinct knows that this man cannot be tamed. He can be loved, he can be admired, but never owned. The rebirth doesn't happen the day she texts you, or the day she shows up at your door, or the day she apologizes. That's not rebirth, that's recycling the past. Rebirth happens when you look in the mirror alone and decide never to be the man who dimmed his light so she could shine. When you decide to walk alone, not out of pride, but out of clarity, because you know that the man you are today no longer needs to beg, to explain, or to wait. There are no excuses, no villains, only choices. And if you choose to stay the one who begs, who stalks her online, who waits for a sign, then you'll get what you chose, because you decided to stay asleep. But if you choose to rise, if you choose to rebuild, then it doesn't matter if she comes back, because you won't be waiting anymore. You'll be living, leading, desiring, with freedom. And that's the only way a woman might one day look at you the way she once did, not because of what you give her, but because of what you embody. You are the beginning, and you are the end. What you do after this point will define whether you're reborn as a free man, or die as the reflection of a woman who no longer chooses you. You decide. But decide with conviction, because after today, there's no room for half measures. You either wake up or you sink. If you made it to the end of this video, you're not just any man. Because facing uncomfortable truths, raw and unfiltered, isn't for everyone. Most walk away the moment they hear what they don't want to admit. But not you. You stayed until the final point. And that says more about you than any past story with a woman. Because what you did today wasn't just watch a video. It was stand firm in front of a mirror that doesn't lie, the mirror of your own truth. You can't play innocent anymore. You can't hide behind, "I didn't know." Now you know. Now you've seen what a woman really feels when you stop chasing her. Not what she shows, not what she says out loud, what she feels deep down when your silence stops being weakness and becomes presence. The question is, what are you going to do with this truth? Because you can keep living the same way, or you can decide that from this moment forward, you're no longer defined by her desire, but by the respect you have for yourself. I want you to comment right now down below just one short, firm phrase, "I am the master of my fate," and tell me which country you're watching from, because this channel has no borders. It has a mission, to wake up men who've been used, dimmed, or emotionally broken by women who didn't even know what they wanted. And I'm Celia, psychologist, therapist, and the woman who's going to tell you, no filters, what they'll never confess, but what you need to understand if you don't want to keep losing your energy, your respect, and your desire. This is the House of Wisdom. You're not here to cry. You're here to see yourself as a man, to rebuild without asking for permission. If this video spoke to you directly, subscribe now. Join this community of men who refuse to be treated like an option. Share this with that friend who's still begging for a woman who's already forgotten him. Maybe today he won't listen, but tomorrow he'll thank you for showing him. And don't leave yet. Watch the 2 videos that will appear on your screen. Pick the one that makes you the most uncomfortable. Because right there, in what you least want to face, is the truth you most need to hear. And remember, a man who chooses himself never begs again. He only returns to reign.